Yeah.
Hello, everybody. If you could just ask you to mute your lines, I'm going to go ahead and do that in the meantime.
Can you go get me the griddle?
So let's see. Here we go.
I'm gonna try.
I don't remember how to do the mute. Oh, so I'm just going to ask everybody to please mute yourself if you're on this call live. You can hear yourself. I can hear you. Management. There we go. Okay, so we can do it this way.
Yeah.
Mute all. All right. Okay, well, thanks everybody. Sorry for the bump in the getting started here. Ben is en route to Deacon's head office in the UK to work on something there, very important. He asked me to fill in for him. We had a conversation yesterday based on some new insights, and many of you were participating on the Aligning with Success call. I'm going to ask some of you to maybe share some of your insights as a result of that call. We want to keep it brief, but I want to first see if I can get to the content here in the shorter time frame that I have. Essentially, I've been traveling quite a bit, and what I've noticed from my experience of communicating with prospects and in ABCs and in meetings when I'm asked to discuss something, invariably these prospects will ask a question, and that the question that they ask reveals what they think they are looking at, the limits to what they are perceiving with respect to the opportunity they've been presented with, which is maybe because they haven't been presented the full opportunity. So it's really showing up. It's showing up who's doing the work of recruiting to the bigger story versus who's simply recruiting direct sellers or product users. So it was becoming very apparent what we needed to discuss and how to shift the focus to where it needs to be if what we're looking for are business builders to create a new momentum in Niken, a new avalanche, if you will, of success stories. And it's always going to be that case in every network marketing opportunity where leaders attract the lion's share of the people. And so what does it look like to be a leader? How do they identify with themselves? And so what it comes down to is two concepts, context and identity. Establishing the context is so critical, and then presenting Niken in a way through that context that that individual can identify. Now, I'll give an example. In Latin America, Mexico in particular, when you walk into a Niken meeting, you know you're in a very professional environment. First of all, the environment itself is typically a professional environment. The venue, they don't chimps out on that. They dress to the max. They dress like business entrepreneurs. So the appearance of the people who are in the business and their guests are very professional. They tend to start their meetings maybe 5 or 10 minutes after the start time, but that's quite typical. But essentially, they also sometimes serve refreshments, things like that. There's an atmosphere that's created that the second you walk in, regardless of what you know about it, or if you know nothing about it, the atmosphere itself creates a message. I think it was McLuhan, I forget the name of the guy, but he said the medium is the message. So before you speak, what you're presenting, the quality of what it looks like says a lot about it. And people will then read into it based on that context. So if it looks cheap, they'll perceive it as cheap. If it looks great, they'll perceive it as great, refined, etc. So it's really important that we establish the right context for a recruiting atmosphere if we're looking for movers and shakers, which are essentially people of influence. And I'm bringing this to you because every time I found myself having to stop somebody in their tracks after they ask a question that's very specific, I have to sort of pause them, like, for instance, about online marketing. Well, what's the mindset of the person, the prospect, if they're asking me about online marketing? They're thinking about how to sell the product, sales. And so that's clearly what they think this is, and maybe that's based on what they've been presented or just where they're coming from in life, their paradigm. So I stop them and I have to reframe. And you guys have heard me use this example. I'm going to share a little PowerPoint that Suzanne Steele, or I guess her and whoever put together, I think it was Suzanne, she shared it with me last night. as to what she has now integrated into her conversation so that she can quickly help people establish what it is that they value or see as valuable in this opportunity as a business opportunity. And I think that's really, really critical. So some of the questions lead me to believe that this person's thinking either we're just simply a network marketing company and that's all there is to it, or that it's a retail opportunity and they're thinking about ways to retail. So I go to the McDonald's analogy, and in that analogy, I'm able to ask them, what do they think business McDonald's is in? So let me just go ahead and share this PowerPoint here with you. Okay, you should be able to see it by now. It says what's next. Basically, it's about what do you see? What are you looking at with a view to the future? So what business is McDonald's in? That's the question that's coming up. Most people answer it's in the fast food business or the restaurant business or the hamburger business. Few people know the correct answer. Well, that's not even the correct answer. Few people know that the McDonald's Corporation is in the real estate business, because it's a point of view. What point of view are we looking at it when we're looking at it? So for instance, in the McDonald's scenario, oops, I'm missing this points in between here. Don't know why that's not happening. All right, well, in the McDonald's scenario, it didn't come through. They're in the franchise business, yes. They're in the restaurant business, yes. Or fast food business industry, yes. They're in the real estate business. Which one of these do you want to hear more about? Which one of these do you appreciate more? So when we look at Niken has those three facets to it. It has a retail opportunity, just like every network marketing business does. It has a franchise model, and it has a networking model. Depending on how that person is receiving information from you or the context you've put them in, from the very beginning, from the second you contact them and invite them to take a look at Niken, they're getting an impression. And that impression is going to shape how they receive and perceive the information you're presenting. So if it's just based on a retail orientation, for instance, all you're talking about is the product, the benefits, the features, etc., that's what you're giving them the impression you're there to sell them. And if you switch over to, no, this is about an opportunity, then the impression is you're there to get them to sell it. And so most of the people that are the movers and shakers in Niken currently, and the ones who have been the movers and shakers of the biggest of opportunities, are not driven by that. They're driven by a much bigger picture. They're driven by purpose, by cause. We've had this conversation, but it's really worth having again and reminding us that we need to appeal to what their sense of identity is. If they're a professional, if they've vested years of their life in creating an identity for themselves, and here you come along sharing the opportunity for them to become a salesperson that they may or may not appreciate at all, what you're doing is creating pushback. It's not inviting to them. And so the context is cloudy. They may not appreciate the value of what's being seen. So it's really important to help people see that Niken, or present it in a way that Niken is actually a step up, that Niken is something that can enhance their identity if they see themselves as a person of influence. So for instance, in the retail model, you generally look for people that hurt. You talk about products that can help you. So you're there to help someone. Franchise model, you're there to people to sell the products. That's what you're looking for. And so you're always looking at them as, oh, they know a lot of people and so forth, but for the wrong reason. Not as a person of influence, but as a person who has an outlet for your products. Wrong context. You're going to limit that person's perception and an interest in this right before you even start, when you approach it from that way. And then generally speaking, oh, we got these great products that can help people. Okay, so those things are true, just like they're true about McDonald's, whether you're the person who owns that restaurant or whether you're the person who's making the hamburgers or buying the hamburgers. But the McDonald's CEO definitely cares that those things are functional and work well, but that's not the business they're in. That's not the meeting they have when they sit down with people. And so we want to have a better understanding of what is it that we're selling. And when I mean selling, what is it? What's the vision that we're painting? What's the picture that we're painting from the beginning that will be that will be more inviting to the kind of people we're looking to attract when we're looking to attract people into our business to help promote our cause? So these people, these entrepreneurs, these people who see them, or professionals who see themselves as influencers, they seek influence. They like the idea of having influence. That's a big word for them. And so their identity is tied to their ability to influence. So if you can show Nikken as a means to influence something that's worth influencing, then they might get interested. So that's another question we'll get to in a minute. But they're driven by a different set of motivations. They like business. They want to be in business. They like freedom. They like time and money freedom. They like making a difference. They like making an impact. And so that's the message that needs to become very clear to them if you're going to attract them. Let me see if I can get out the stop share. Okay. So, so there's two things when it comes to sharing this identity, this concept. Many of us have been talking about the why, the why, the why. Well, that can be confusing too, because if the why happens to be personal, like I'm doing this business because da-da-da-da-da-da, then that's your reason for doing it. And if you talk to them about doing the business, again, their why, da-da-da-da-da-da, you may in fact be tripping up somewhere because their why is their business. The question that's more important, and by the way, and it's up to them to discover how this can fit into their why. What's really important is, why are you in this business to begin with? Why does this business have any reason to exist? And why can they join you and contribute in some way that makes it worth everybody's time, namely theirs? What is it that this business has to accomplish that makes it worth people investing in their time and energy into it? Not your business, not even their business, the business. What is it that this idea of Nikken, why does it exist? What's the relevance? What's the value in the world? That conversation is going to draw people into it. And if it's a good one, if it's important, if it's meaningful, they're going to see themselves as maybe being someone who can influence that situation. So what I'm talking about is the business vision, not your business, not their business, just the business idea in general. This is more about the cause of why should Nikken and in all of its moving parts exist? What's the value of it? It's 42 years. Maybe it's old. Maybe it's done. Maybe it's irrelevant. Or can you paint a picture as to why it's not old, why it is totally relevant, maybe more now than ever before, and why there's such a big job ahead of us? If we just simply looked at the demographics, the majority of everybody on this phone is a baby boomer. You've done a lot in your own way to appeal to an aging demographic called the baby boomer. How many of you have appealed to the Gen X or the Gen Y? How many of the Gen X or Gen Y, if we looked at that as a market, have been penetrated with the concepts and the possibility of Nikken? Who's going to pass on the meaning, the message, and the purpose of Nikken and the future of Nikken? Whose role is it to pass it on to the next generation? Who are we waiting for? And so if we're going to communicate and attract that group of people, we've got to do it in a way that they identify with. And they don't identify with pain. They don't identify with pain relief. They don't identify with just schlepping products. They want to be inspired. And so the message has got to be a lot more inspiring to appeal to that mind. Yes, there's value in Nikken from their own personal perspective, but they'll discover that if you get them into the conversation. So what I'm talking about right now is a business vision. So let me switch gears for a second and show you this slide. Excuse me, here we go. Share screen. Okay, this is the one that I reference all the time. This slide here is the one that allows me to have that conversation with people. Essentially, it's the trajectory. In this one slide, I'm encapsulating the reason why Nikken needs to exist, the reason why the message, more importantly, not Nikken, but the message that we're delivering to the marketplace is relevant. It's because we have been preconditioned to fail financially. We have been preconditioned to fail in virtually every aspect of our life. The statistics are telling us that. Regardless of how long you've been on this planet, the trajectory of life is taking us to a place that is counterintuitive and counterproductive. But by virtue of all the systems, structures, and beliefs that we have been taught to adopt. So what we are doing in Niken is giving people a new definition of success. We're giving them a new methodology. We're giving them principles and applications and technologies that can move them in the right trajectory, shift that trajectory, immediate and long term. That's our humans being more concept. It's enshrouded in that idea, but what it is simply helping people change the trajectory of their life, whereby their new daily choices and habits become a trajectory that is favorable in terms of experiencing quality of life through balance in those 5 pillars. So this is a paradigm shift. This is an agent of change would be responsible for putting this kind of a message out. And how many people need to hear it? Well, the aging baby boom population, they're falling off the end. We might not be able to catch many of them, but a lot of them are still in the game and need some support there. But more importantly are these next generations, the X and Y, who are on the same trajectory, but they don't think they are because, you know, they're young and they have their future ahead of them and they don't see the future just like we did. It's like cooking a frog by turning the temperature up a little bit at a time. That's what's going on. And so we're change agents. We're out there shouting from the rooftop saying this madness has to end. And the solution is actually quite simple. Nature has all of the answers. We just simply have to integrate it back into our life. So this slide allows me, and this conversation allows me to explain the cause, the reason why we're out there, the reason why we need their help. Not why I'm there to help them, but why I need their help. If they're a person of influence and means, I need their help. I need their help to get this message across. And that's the McDonald's real estate business, not the hamburgers or the restaurant. We do have hamburgers. We do have restaurants. That's our business model. That's how we get the message out. That's how we get the value out where the rubber meets the road. But it's the reason why we exist. So when it comes to the conversation about the business, the franchise, the 2 most important words in that conversation, I'm going to add one more: leverage and compound. That's the key to being able to multiply our time and our money. And if you're not employing leveraging or leverage and compound in your finances, your area of finance, you are not likely, statistically speaking, to ever achieve financial freedom or even just sound finances. So these are the Niken franchise, or more specifically, the business model. Use that language. The business model of Niken allows for people to leverage and compound, not unlike Uber allowed people to leverage and compound their structure. And now Uber became, in short order, the fastest growing corporation or fastest growing taxi company in the world. In fact, the largest, because they developed a system that allowed for scalability. Write that word down. Scalability is a big word. So leverage, compound, and scalability. Those are the 3 big ticket items when it comes to explaining to people. And by the way, I'm speaking from firsthand experience with some of these Gen X and Ys on phone calls. They are telling me about that. And they're explaining these concepts to me as well as I'm sharing with them. So the idea of leverage our system, our infrastructure, our company's infrastructure, leverage the timing of the market being virgin in virtually every demographic, especially in the X and Y. And then the concept of compounding, where by multiplication, by showing something small, we can compound. But because it's small and supported internationally, it's scalable. This business can grow very, very quickly because it's a little bit of something being done through repetition, through the efforts of others. That scalability is a big, big thing when it comes to speaking of the business. I'm going to share these slides, by the way, with you on the Launch Partners channel. So if you want to integrate them into your PowerPoint, you'll have them to integrate. The Teach 3 to Reach 3, by the way, that's simply the concept of compounding. ABCs is the concept of leveraging. So that's how we use that to actually deliver on that promise. And of course, the products, that's the hamburger. That's where the rubber meets the road. we can clearly demonstrate the value of that in the world today, based on it's a replication of nature. So we have a very solid argument, but you will never get into attracting the mind of somebody who sees themselves as relevant and important if you're not addressing the big picture. And the big picture is the cause, the reason why we exist, the reason why this business needs to exist. People will work 24/7 for a cause. Now, I know this call is a little bit shorter than what I have to really roll out the ideas that I did. So I'm just going to encourage those of you who hadn't been on last night's Aligning with Success call to look it up and review it. We had a really long conversation with some interaction as well that will help you really grasp the concepts that I'm talking about here. And there's some examples as well of real life situations that occurred that recently. I just want to leave you with one other thought, and then I'll just ask somebody to jump in as well. I was working in Atlanta this past weekend, and there was a young guy who presented me to a young guy who was in my meeting for maybe 5 minutes. I don't think he even heard the meeting. He was on his phone. I had to jump on a plane. So in the minutes that I had to get from the meeting room to the car with Peter Gibson, we had this conversation. And so the conversation was, what did you hear? I asked him, first question, what did you hear? And he starts telling me, of course, what he starts thinking is how we can intranet, how we could do this on the internet. And I'm just like, hold on a second. Are you familiar with McDonald's? What business is McDonald's in? So I did the reframe, and all of a sudden he has a better appreciation for the big picture. You saw his eyes get really big. And so then I said to him, now that based on what you've heard, let me ask you something. Because I'm talking about influence. I'm talking about changing the paradigms of the consciousness of people. I'm talking about talking to a generation that doesn't even know we exist. I've made millions talking to a generation that this guy's not even part of. And the generation he's part of knows nothing about this. So you want to be the next guy? You want to be the one who puts it on the map? I'll be more than happy to work with you on that. So his eyes are getting big. And I say, based on what you've just heard, of all the people you know, who should I be speaking to next? And he said, well, I can think of a few people. Well, I said, I don't need a few people, I just need one. Who, one person. And then he mentioned this person, and then he started describing this person. He's a pastor, he has influence in the community, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time he was finished telling me, he had laid out a business plan. He already had a business plan on how to approach all of this. So I turned to Peter and said, that's going to be your next conversation, Peter. Which, by the way, ended up being my ABC yesterday. And this guy that they brought me to, holy cow, does he understand this idea? So I just want you to understand what happened here. A person that had been in NECAN for some time, not doing much, happened to bring somebody who heard hardly anything, who then yesterday had me on an ABC call. That's called taprooting. The funny thing is, the guy who had me on that ABC yesterday probably knows very little about the products. We never got into it. Probably knows very little about NECAN. We never really got into it. It was just the concepts and the power of the idea that we got into. How many of you find yourself mired in the details and you're missing the big picture? This guy went into action immediately. How many of you are having trouble getting your downline to move, to do anything? So ask the one question of who's the person I should be speaking to next based on what you understand, and start drilling down. And all of a sudden things start happening and they get excited. In fact, the fellow who introduced me to that guy on the ABC call, the guy that I only met for like 5 minutes, texted me last night and said, I got another couple ones lined up for today. This is a guy who doesn't know anything about NECAN, and yet he's already in gear. Why? Because the concept is more powerful than the minutia. We'll get to the details. That's there. But if you can't talk about the concept or the power of that concept, then you're not going to attract that hungry, ambitious individual. All right. I know some of you are on the call. We have 5 minutes. So if there was a ha-ha moment based on the last 24 hours or what you picked up and you want to share that, just go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
It's Madeline.
Go ahead, Madeline.
Clarity. In October of 1998, my third month, attended my first Team Diamond meeting in Japan. I caught this vision. I understood the cause. It was what I was looking for. And then I got caught up in the details. And last night, I got the vibration back. Couldn't go to sleep. And I am as excited as I was in October of 1998. This is crystal clear. And doing that Thursday evening product showcase with Michelle, every Thursday evening, that first slide, that trajectory, and saying it over and over again, what attracted me to Nikan were those 5 pillars of health and imbalance. I named my company A Time for Balance. I've mentored young people my entire life. So I got back into the teaching mode when, for whatever reason, I didn't create that network. Caught it, didn't create it, but that's okay. The past doesn't predict the future, and I couldn't be more excited.
Fantastic.
Clarity.
Thank you, Madeline. Anyone else? Just unmute yourself if you were on last night's call and got a buzz.
I'm just going to say ditto to what Madeline said. It was the clarity of last night's call, realizing it's not my business, it's not their business, it's the business, and how they can catch the vision. I'm much more clear on that. And thank you for that, Michael. And I've listened to the call already once, and I'll be listening to it again.
People don't want to feel like they missed the boat. That whatever it is that you guys are up to, good for you. I'm glad you had a good run. I guess I must have missed it. They need to see that there's a future. They need to see that whatever it is that we've done up to now has been fine. But the real future, the real horsepower is now. What we now know about what we're doing. The transition from, I'll tell you example. The McDonald's brothers ran McDonald's. They had a good thing going. Great. And then along came Ray Kroc and changed everything. So go find your Ray Kroc. We've been doing all right. It's good. McDonald's is good. Got a good system and so forth. But what we need really is a Ray Kroc. We need the people who are able to take this idea and explode it and create scalability and have it just go ballistic.
Something else you said, Michael, is the people that we talk to, they want to feel elevated. They don't want to feel like they're just another Me Too. They want to have that elevation of their dream, of their possibilities.
So don't talk to them about their pain and their problems. That's not really the conversation that's going to elevate them. What will elevate them is when you talk about their virtues. The possibility that applied in this scenario could be something that would be explosive, extraordinary. That they could take their talents that are latent or are being applied in some other way and really multiply them through this concept of influence, compounding, leverage, and scalability. All of a sudden, an entrepreneur with some success of their own can make an influence, can create an influence and start a wave of activity. That could be exciting. Go ahead, Michelle.
Mike, could I just share something? How do we open the conversation? So with conversations after the call last night, there was many of us that were up all night. I come up with this. Do you believe people will work 24/7 passionately for a cause?
That they believe in.
Are you one of those people? Are you open to work for a cause for the betterment of society while earning an income?
That's fine. I mean, you don't have to veer away from how you get those appointments. I mean, wouldn't be the first thing I would probably say to somebody, but it would be what I would want to say in so many words. I would want to paint a picture. I don't think a sentence is going to do it, but it will be a conversation around that idea. So I'm looking for instance, people who have influence, who still have something to contribute, who want to roll their experiences into something magnificent that could create a movement that's most definitely needed. We have to move away from the trajectory that is the standard trajectory right now. And so it's a big idea. I've got a big idea. we've got a big idea. I don't even say we're part of a big idea. We've got something going on, and somebody like you could be a catalyst in taking it to the next level.
And it doesn't diminish, because that was some of that conversation before the Align with Success meeting. It doesn't diminish that you still need the customers and you still need the franchises. It's looking for the 3 to help the momentum grow.
Yeah, it's just identifying the person you're looking for if you're looking to attract a leader. And yes, the conversation about how well the franchise is, the business, 3 components of the business: product, business, system. Don't forget system. If you're not showing them a system, you're not talking about something that's scalable. So pull your tools out, show them what system we applied. That's that. Then the products themselves are the tangible, the value of those products in the marketplace. So we have all of that. We have all the components. What has been missing is how to attract those people at a level where they can't sleep when they hear the story. That's what you want. I know how it was like for me. Okay, we're at 12:32. Dave, I think you wanted to say something.
Oh, I just you got me all excited, Mike, and I think one of the big takeaways is what you just said, that based on the conversation we just had, who is the person that I need to be speaking to next? And this is I think that's the big difference maker. Is it's not just what we do, it's what we duplicate. And one of my favorite things to do when the magic is there, you can see the shining eyes, they're excited. I just like to kind of tell them that, hey, what you saw me just do with you, that's the job description. When you do NECAN, it's just going out and meeting new friends and sharing an idea that can change their whole life. What I'd recommend you do is just go on a test drive with me. And this is what I recommend you do. And I kind of do that, if you were going to run with this, of all the people who is the one person that you really think would be good in this? Who would you really like to have as a friend anyway that you really think would be good? And let's do with them what we just did. We'll just go for a test drive with them and see what happens. Everything to gain, nothing to lose. What do you think? And if you got a little bit of trust going and they're excited about that, wow, huge upside, no downside. And so, yeah, this is good stuff, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
The difference, Mike, the difference on that, because we've heard that and we've said that, is what this is, the cause, the global cause of balance in the world, of those 5 pillars of health. The world is so out of balance. So the 24/7, who's willing to work for a cause? We see how people are flying and doing everything to help with all the hurricane victims. It's a cause. Clarification of our cause. That was the big aha for me last night.
All right, guys. Well, we got a big project ahead of us, so let's get to work. Let's find some influencers and make it happen. Have a great week. Thank you.
Let's change the world.
Michael.